Welcome, and thanks for being with us today. Your commitment to enhancing your English abilities and bettering yourself is truly valued. The problem is not that you learn slowly, but that you are using the wrong method. When the method does not fit, your brain reacts by refusing to store information no matter how hard you try. You may have spent hours memorizing long vocabulary lists, remembered them at that moment, but only a few days later, almost everything disappeared. This can easily make you think you have no talent for languages, but the truth is your memory is not the problem. What needs to change is the way you put information into your mind. The human brain is not designed to keep separate pieces of data. It only keeps things that have connections, images, emotions, clear context, and appear again at the right time. When you try to force single words into your head, you are going against this natural system, and when you fight how the brain works, forgetting is not a failure but a certain result. You may have known many words but still could not make sentences when speaking. That helpless feeling can make you believe you lack talent. In fact, you are only learning in a separated way. A word alone is like a key without the name of its lock. When you need it, you may hold a whole bunch but still cannot open any door. Human memory remembers scenes, not lists. A word truly exists in your mind only when it is inside a sentence with a real situation. You may forget the meaning of a word learned from a definition, but if you once heard it in a familiar sentence, you will remember it when you need it. The brain does not store single words. It stores sound, tone, context, and feeling when the sentence was spoken. Learning phrases is like learning a full movement, so your reaction becomes faster than remembering separated parts. Fluent speakers are not the ones who know the most words, but the ones who are familiar with many patterns. When you change from learning meanings to learning usage, you will see that you are no longer trying to memorize, but just becoming familiar. And then you realize that speaking a language does not start from vocabulary, but from context. Real progress speed actually lies in the part you cannot see, which is the amount of language you have listened to and read before trying to speak. When your ears are not used to sounds and your eyes are not used to structures, your mouth can only put together separate words like a puzzle missing pieces. But when you are exposed long enough, your brain quietly records the rhythm of sentences and word order without you noticing. That is why some people speak naturally even without studying many rules, simply because they have listened long enough to build reflexes. This feeling is like listening to a song many times and then singing the chorus without trying to learn the lyrics. Language grows in the same quiet way. It always builds first and shows later. When you understand this, you stop rushing to speak and start patiently building the base. The key point is not how many times you repeat, but how you make information alive. A word without image or emotion will be treated by the brain as noise and removed very quickly. But if you connect it with a clear scene, the memory has something to hold and stays longer. Just one vivid image can make the brain keep a word like it keeps a memory. The brain always prefers stories over definitions, because stories create clear paths to return to. When you learn through association, you do not need to force yourself to hold words anymore. The images will hold them for you. And when you need to use them, what appears first is not a translation, but a whole scene that brings the word out naturally. The time you remember a word also depends on the distance between the times you meet it again. If a word appears once and disappears, the brain treats it like a stranger passing by and deletes it. But if it returns right when you are about to forget, the brain understands that it is important and moves it into long-term memory. That is why some people learn a lot in one session, but forget everything a few days later, not because they are bad, but because the memory was not strengthened. Reviewing in cycles is like reminding the brain that this data is still needed. Each time you meet it again, the memory mark becomes a little stronger until it turns into a natural reflex. What keeps you learning the longest is not discipline, but interest.
When what you listen to or read matches your taste, your brain accepts it as entertainment, not a task. Then, learning becomes lighter and deeper. You may forget vocabulary lists, but remember a whole line from a movie scene just because you like it. Emotion makes the brain open instead of resist. When you meet things you are curious and interested in, new words flow into memory without force. Your vocabulary grows while you think you are only relaxing. When you look back, you realize what helped you go far was not pressure, but a way of learning that made you want to continue. The brain also needs clear signs that you are improving. When learning has no clear measurement, effort feels vague and motivation fades easily. But with a clear goal, each time you complete it, you feel real progress. That feeling is like watching a clock hand move step by step. The brain likes measurable things because it sees that a reward is getting closer. When goals are clear, motivation appears by itself instead of being forced. And when you look back at what you have done, you understand that what keeps you moving is not strong will, but the feeling of winning small steps. A word truly belongs to you when you use it. Seeing it is not enough. Reading it is not enough. Only when you speak it or write it does the brain mark it as information to keep. At first, it may feel awkward, but that awkwardness actually activates long-term memory. Words you have used are very hard to forget because the brain remembers actions, not just images. When you put everything together, the picture becomes clear. Learning vocabulary fast does not depend on magic tricks, but on three things working together: the right method, regular habits, and an environment where the language appears every day. Without strategy, you learn a lot but stay confused. Without habits, you know the way but stop halfway. Without environment, knowledge has nowhere to live and fades away. But when all three exist, progress happens almost naturally, like a plant that has soil, water, and sunlight. And then you realize that learning speed does not depend on having a good or bad memory, but whether you place yourself in the right system. If you find this video interesting and helpful, please give me a like and subscribe.